Have you seen this thread on X or Reddit, aka the Thunderdome of the internet? It's a 44-point manifesto by a very angry DM to his group. It's since been taken down, but the internet is forever, and a lot of other dungeon tubers have been sharing their thoughts on it, so I thought I'd weigh in. And it's not just drama, it's very instructive, because a lot of the things that come up in these 44 rules I have talked about on Dungeon Craft in various episodes. I'm also a writing teacher by trade, and I've analyzed the rhetoric, and it's provided insights to me into the mind of the game master, but also their players, and I'll share them today on Dungeon Craft.
Deathbringer here. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and sign up for the Deathbringer RPG newsletter below.
Welcome to Dungeon Craft. I'm Professor DM, and this channel is about all things independent and homebrew role-playing games. And if you dig that, you want to like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you receive all our videos as soon as they're released. All right, let's get right into it. 1, I'm timing turns. I don't give an F if it's unfair in your opinion. You get 1 minute to know all the actions you want, or I skip your turn. I think I recommended in my video Speed Up Combat the idea of using sand timers, and everyone gets a minute or so. I think it's not unreasonable in Dungeons & Dragons that you take a turn, like every 5 minutes at least. The piece here that's missing is how many people are in this group. 5e is really designed for 3 or 4 players plus a game master. If you don't believe me, check out the D&D starter set box. It even says this game is for up to 6 players. I think you can play D&D in groups larger than that, but it really is incumbent on the players to take their turns quickly, to know what they can do, and I think that's that's for very advanced game masters only. 2, if you want harder fights, bring a second character sheet and expect to twiddle your thumbs when you die. I'm not going to baby anyone. I always require my players to have a backup character in case their character dies, and I'm really not interested in if it fits the narrative or the fiction. If you die, you come in the very next scene and you just play your backup character, because it's not a movie. No one's sitting out at my table. Everyone should be involved as soon as possible. 3, if you call me or my rolls unfair, I'll get up and go home. Unless it's a secret roll like lockpicking or sneaking, I'll roll that behind the screen, but everything else I roll in public in front of all the players, and I don't know why more game masters don't do that, especially during combat. That way if you get 3 natural 20s against the player characters, they know it's not you, it's the dice. 4, I'm going to take your character's loot away as regularly as you want it given out. I think it's really problematic to take away things from the player characters once you've given it to them. The players are always resentful and will always fight against that. 5, if you don't act out any of your persuasion or intimidation or any other social checks, you fail before you even roll, because you're not even trying and you're making the game lame for everyone else. This is the classic charisma conundrum. If you have a player that's not really charismatic, do they have to role play every interaction, or they just roll the die and try to beat a target number? There's no really good answer to this. This is why I prefer older editions of Dungeons & Dragons, like Advanced Dungeons & Dragons or BX Dungeons & Dragons, when charisma only covered the loyalty your henchmen felt toward you. So no bargaining or persuasion or charm or seduction or anything like that. If you make charisma a thing in your game and players can buff it out, of course, they're going to use that, and just like a sword is going to hit anything if you've got a high enough strength, the players are going to think if my charisma is super high, I can persuade anyone of anything. And there's more, but before we get to it, I want to tell you about the sponsor of this video, DC20 by Dungeon Coach. If you love D20-based games but like the idea of more innovative and intuitive rules, open character creation, greater customization, you want to check out DC20. DC20 is all about dynamic agency. The action economy gives you 4 action points. You can move, attack, cast a spell, dodge, hide. You can also spend action points to inflict bonus damage, power up your spells, and you can spend those action points as reactions, defend an ally, catch an arrow midair, inspire other characters. It's fun, it's intuitive, and it's fast. Mix and match your traits to customize your own ancestry. If you want to be a Dwelf or a Horkling, you can. There are no limits with DC20. Check out the DC20 Kickstarter at the link below. Support good games made by good people and real artists. Now on with the show. 6, if you don't pick up clues for side quests, that's not my problem. Get over yourself. Actually, I think it is your problem, Game Master. I think Game Masters need to make it clear within the first 5 minutes of the game what exactly are the players supposed to accomplish. What is their goal? And if you have more players, you ought to make that clearer sooner. And I go into more detail about this in a video called Less Exposition, More Demolition, which didn't get as many views as I thought, even though I thought it was a very useful video. There's going to be a link to that at the end of this one. 7. If you move to a square in combat, there's no takebacks. People are counting grids. Oh my god, it's so fucking boring. Modern games use range bands. Conan, Index Card RPG, Shadow Dark, Mothership, which I'm reviewing in a couple of days. My own game, Deathbringer, they all use zones. Zones are where it's at. It makes combat so much faster. I've even got zoned ultimate dungeon terrain. You want to check that out. I don't know why everyone thinks grids is an official rule. It's not. It's an optional rule. It's like proficiency dice. And no one seems to play with that rule. I have no idea why grids got so popular. 7. You tell every single person what you're doing before you do it. Don't effing roll dice and say you're casting Fireball. You tell us all. Okay, so you got a cheating player there. I've seen that at the table where the players are always rolling dice on the side, and if they roll really well, they're like, oh, I cast Fireball and I score almost maximum damage. 9. I will give out exhaustion more frequently. If you argue, go home, or you can actually fight me over it.
If you want to throw down in fisticuffs, fine. I've got Jack Johnson and Tom O'Leary waiting for you, right here.
10. Every snide comment you make to an NPC will be remembered and paid back in triplicate. You all seem to believe there is little consequence. All right, so why do they believe that there's little consequence? My son was playing at the age of 8 and he threatened the town. Like the town was trying to hire he and his friends to rid them of goblins. My son was like, how about this instead? We're going to kill you unless you give us all your money. And the town authorities quickly arrived and put him in the stockades, and he went and cried to his mom. But he learned that in my world, doing things and saying things has consequences. 11. You will not be given a mega dungeon every session. Of course not. If you want to know how to run a mega dungeon, check out my video, The Lost City, which is being re-released for 5e, and I talk all about how to run a mega dungeon effectively. 12. The travel portion is done. You want to travel continents, literally doing whatever you want, whenever you want. Go play World of Warcraft or play D&D with AI. At the end of my sessions, I always say to the players, where do you want to go next? And then I plan for that. If there's an overland journey, I may plan some encounters. Like the players, I like the idea of an open world, but you can't just go wherever you want and expect me to make it up on the fly. 13. If you're late with no good reason, I'm going to have your character's hit points. 14. If you don't show up for no good reason, and that will be determined by me alone, you'll lose a whole level full stop. And the second time you do it in a row, you'll be removed from the chat and the group full stop. Players should arrive on time and they should never cancel at the last moment. That's just common courtesy. Whenever I say that, people say, well, what about emergencies? Like, I've been playing this game for 40 years. I've never had an emergency. Like where someone got into a car accident or something, or someone died. Like that would be an actual emergency. Most of the time when people don't show up or they're late, it's more or less that they mismanage their day. 15 and 16. If you get too stoned or drunk to play, I will go home without a warning. If you get up for a bong or smoke or whatever breaks every 10 minutes, I'll simply pack up and go home. I don't have to deal with these problems. My players are at a different age. Like, to them, doing drugs is taking a leave. 17. Guidance, divination spells, owls, or whatever spells I decide are too effing stupid are banned outright. I always say on this channel, put the master in game master. Whatever the game master decides, that is the rules. The game master has the final decision on what spells, what classes, multi-classing, and all that stuff are actually used in the game. If a game master thinks the spell is OP, they can say, we're not using that spell. I think the next edition of the Dungeon Master's Guide should say that more clearly. It should be emblazoned in the front, that the Game Master has complete authority to use or not use or ban anything that they want. 18, you get one chance at a skill check. If you F up, your party doesn't get the chance to do the same check. Think careful who's good at what. Well, the problem with that is the charisma issue. There are ways to jack up your charisma effectively to like 28, and then you end up in a situation where that one character is always doing the talking, and I personally think that's boring. Also, if you fail to pick a lock, you can't have someone else try to pick the same lock. I don't get it. 19. Discussion of metagame details in-game will result in an instant damage to your character. Wait, so if you come late, the Game Master is going to dock you half your hit points. Like, the players aren't allowed to metagame, but the Game Master is. The Game Master is using grid-based combat. That's metagaming. 20. Rules lawyering fellow players is encouraged. Actualing me will just result in me telling you to F off. Well, that's not nice. But again, the Game Master is the final authority on the rules. 21. You roll the dice within view of 2 players. You roll them neatly, and you roll on the table. And failing these things will result in an auto-fail at whatever you tried to do. And arguing that you actually roll validly when you clearly didn't is an automatic critical fail. Again, the Game Master has players who are clearly cheating. 22. Instant death traps and mechanics are coming into place. If you call these things unfair, I will laugh at you and tell you to F off and cry some more. I'm sensing some real hostility. It's not really necessary to talk to someone. It doesn't make your argument more persuasive. Personally, I don't like insta-kill death traps. Maybe in a 0-level funnel meat grinder kind of adventure, but once the characters have gotten up a few levels, I just find that dramatically unsatisfying. 23, I will not give you random magical items and vendors will not stock them. Yeah, that's standard. I don't know how the idea that there's a magic shop in every city, I don't know where that came from. Like, I'd like 1 Excalibur, please. Yes, we have a monthly plan for that. No. 24. Random encounters in the form of random dragons or strange mysterious road trader or a band of goblin prostitutes isn't going to happen. Play Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 has goblin prostitutes? 25 and 26. I don't give 2 Fs what Reddit said about X or Y ruling, and I actually give less of an F about what your mates group did. Every game of D&D is different. My game is different from your game. It's not one standard game. It differs from table to table, and house rules are a thing. And now for the mid-rant break. If you want to support this channel, you should check out Patreon. You get bonus video content, access to an exclusive Discord server, and my Game Master's notebook, and there's a link below. I also just did a video about repainting minis, including how to paint their eyes. You could check that out. Check out my campaigns, The Lost City and The Reviled Society, if you like those miniatures and models and storytelling. And I've got a review of Mothership coming up this Wednesday, so don't miss it. 27. Saying anything about me to the other players not liking me doing X or Y without them saying it directly to me will result in me kicking you out of the group. All right, so they're talking about the Game Master behind their back. And 28. You're not to sit down and have a 2-hour discussion about what Samson from Bandura Secondary did 3 weeks ago when you come to play. Take the 15 to 20 minutes I used to set up and review my notes to talk to each other and then sit down and play. Now it's all coming into focus. Bandura Secondary School is a high school in Australia. So these are students who are probably 17, 18 years old. Maybe they're in their first year of university. And everything is becoming way clearer now. These are really kids. They're not really adults yet. 29. Saying stuff like, guys, we're not here to have fun. We're here to play D&D. This is serious business. Is rude and dismissive of how much work I put into this. I will simply go home if I hear this stuff. It is rude and dismissive, and clearly it illustrates a misalignment. The Game Master is very serious about the game, and the players just want to fool around and take bong hits. They don't care if they're there on time. They don't care what their spells are. So you really have a misalignment of priorities there. I think this is all part of growing up. I think this is a group that is becoming adults, but they're not quite there yet. 30. Don't effing order food randomly. And 31. No food or drinks near my D&D gear. If you wreck something, you can pay for it. You're an adult. Accept responsibility. Well, again, they're in this twilight period where they're not quite adults. Like, that's what an adult would do. If I borrow a book from you and it gets rained on, I will replace that book and I will say, I apologize, you lent me this book, it got rained on, but I brought you a new copy. And I can do that because A, I'm an adult with empathy, and B, I have money. My friends had these arguments too, like, you borrowed my bike and then bent the rim, and it's like, no, I didn't. And it ultimately comes down to you're immature and you don't have the money to replace it. 32. Arguments between party members outside of roleplay will be resolved by me, giving the definite ruling. Yes, absolutely, that's the Game Master's prerogative. If you don't like it, F off back home. Well, that's kind of harsh. 33. I don't give an F what they did on Critical Role or what one guy on Reddit said. The world I run works on internal rulings and lore I created specifically for it. So yeah, this is like the 5th time they're going over the same thing. The players clearly believe that what is written in the books and what Matt Mercer and people do on the internet are the authorities of Dungeons & Dragons. They don't accept the idea that the Game Master is the ultimate authority. 34. Every single person in this chat is having debuffs applied to their characters. Here's the problem. Again, it's like taking the loot away. Once you've given something to the players, you really can't take it away. If you do that, you should expect them to quit. The key is not to give your players a lot of stuff in the first place. Keep them hungry. 35, if you don't bring your sheet, you don't play. I always collect my player sheets at the end of the session and I keep them till the next one. 36, if you don't bring dice, borrow some. I actually have a jar of dice right in the middle of the table so you can borrow some anytime you like. 37, when we play, I'm not your friend. That doesn't mean you treat me like an enemy during the game. It means I'm no longer being nice. I'm not your friend, but that doesn't mean you should treat me as an enemy. It's like conflicting things there. 38, if you treat me poorly in any way, shape, or form after or during or before the game, due to something that happened in the game, you're out. I don't have to deal with that energy. Absolutely you don't, and you shouldn't stand for it. 39, you will submit your spell list daily in-game, and if you do not give me a spell list each game day, you will not be allowed to cast a single spell or a cantrip in combat. Look, people who are playing Wizards, there's a lot of stuff you got to keep track of, and it becomes frustrating for all the other players as well if you're not prepared. This could also be the result of players manipulating the spell list to their advantage and cheating, which apparently this group does regularly. 41, if you break literally anything, you could buy the replacement that day or not attend until you do. Again, if you break someone's stuff, you got to replace it. 42, if you complain about the choice of music, I fully expect you to bring the whole playlist next session. If I had to bring the playlist to the next session, I would just have songs by Wham. What the Game Master could be doing is offloading the music to one of the players. Like, have the player select the music. If you're in combat, have them find combat music. If you're sneaking around, have them find spooky music. 43, cannot stress enough how little I care about how you feel about my rulings from now on. Oh, and rule 44, I'm never just threatening you, I'm promising you. That sounds like something Deathbringer would say. So what we have here is a failure to communicate, and there's just a complete misalignment in values. The Game Master clearly wants to run a serious game, and their players just want to goof around and don't really value the Game Master's time. This is not unusual for people the age that I think they are. It was like this for my friends at the time, and I suspect it's the same way for many groups. At one point, this Game Master says, you should Game Master the game. Actually, that's a great idea. My group, when we were in our 20s, we started doing that. We started switching off. I ran Call of Cthulhu, another ran Mech Warrior, another ran Warhammer, and we took turns. I think when you're a Game Master, it makes you a better player because you're able to empathize with the Game Master and realize what that Game Master is going through and how much time and effort they put in. And so you're more cooperative and you want to work with the Game Master to make sure the game is a success. If you're always a player, it can result in the idea that you are a consumer of entertainment and the Game Master is there to provide the entertainment, and you just sit there and kind of take it all in. And people can talk about session 0 and social contracts, but these are people who don't have social skills in the real world. Like when you're this age, you don't plan graduation parties or first Holy Communions or weddings or Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner. You're just invited places. You show up and you stuff your face with food. As you grow up and you enter the world and you start planning Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner and people don't show up, you'll feel the frustration of people canceling out at the last second or showing up late, and you'll have empathy. You won't want to do that to other people because you want to treat other people the way you would want to be treated. And that, unfortunately, only comes with experience. I think that these players will probably evolve into decent people, but it's going to be a while. 2 pieces of advice for this Game Master quick. I really recommend inviting only 3 or 4 players. Everything's going to run smoother. The turns will take less time. You can reduce it to the 3 or 4 most serious players so you can play a game that you will enjoy. But I don't think a 44-point manifesto is going to be effective. As American philosopher, founding father, and electrician Benjamin Franklin said, a word to the wise is enough. At least that's what I think. What do you think? Share in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. May all your rolls be 20s.
Deathbringer again, and I'm never just threatening you. I'm promising you more dungeon craft.